Our lives, but they'll never take our freedom. Why so serious?
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
Well, I'm not good. I want you to get mad. You gotta say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Mainstreet. Gary Allen with you. I am wearing the mask, as you will see me probably for the next month wearing it because we're getting some dental work done. We're getting some other stuff done, and you don't want to see this. It isn't party. I don't even look at it, but bear with me. Next week, Jeffrey Mark will be filling in for me on the 11th as well as the 25th as I get some more work done. I'll be on in between with another guest, but today we have an absolutely fabulous guest on for you. Her name is Vanessa Hollingshead. She is a comedian, a writer, producer, director, you name it. She was voted one of the top 50 funniest women in comedy today. I want to know who the other 49 are. She's going to be appearing very shortly on June 24th at the 76 House. You want to go over to, the brownpapertickets.com. If you would like to go and see her, it's going to be at 8 p.m. It's going to be a fabulous evening. This young lady has worked with some of the heavy hitters in the business, such as Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Bill Maher. She's had her own comedy special on Comedy Central. She has also been at the Montreal Comedy Festival 4 times. She has written a fabulous, finished a wonderful project with her partner, and we're going to talk about that as we move forward. But today we have her on this program. So without further ado, would you please bring on the fabulous Vanessa Hollingshead? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm good. That was quite a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much.
Till I got a little clever and I stumbled all over myself, you know.
No, you're fine.
You're going to be appearing on June 24th at the 76 House. Who else is going to be with you?
Helene Witt, George Saltz. I think a couple other comedians that I'm not familiar with. Rhonda Hansen, who's very funny. I've worked with her a lot on Funny Women. I do a lot of Waka shows. That's funny women of a certain age. Mm-hmm. I've been doing that.
And you're also with John Fugelsang on his show. You're a regular there.
Not quite a regular. I do a show. I mean, for me to get ready to do John's show, I have to brush up on what's going on in the news. Otherwise, I'm the portion of the show that's kind of the sociologist and psychologist. That's probably what I love most of all, figuring people out.
Was show business a place where you always wanted to be in one form or another?
Yeah. Yeah, my mom said when you were a little girl, we were walking down the street and there was a television screen. It was completely like someone had thrown out a TV set, and you walked right into the TV set and said, I want to be on TV. So, yeah.
Who were the people you looked up to? I mean, was it comedy, or you just said, oh, I want to be on TV, but you didn't know specifically what?
I literally wanted to be an actress. You know, I was an actress back then. Or a veterinarian. That was it. I didn't even start doing comedy until I was 31. I was just pure acting. I studied at the Lee Strasberg Theatrical Institute in New York. I got scholarships. Then I studied in London. Then I learned, Shakespeare. Then I learned dynamic pentameter. And I was always able to imitate people, just hear them and imitate them. And I always had a great sense of humor, but I was also very serious, very disciplined. And it was very hard to get, acting work when I was working as a secretary in New York. So one day I stumbled, my roommate at the time when I was living in Astoria said, you're funnier than, when you tell me about your day at work, that's funnier than half the sitcoms I'm watching. You should try and go be a comedian. Mm-hmm. Like on stage, no, never, no, no. And she's like, just try it. So I remember I got all the girls from the office, and I was at 53rd and 3rd, and I worked at 53rd in Lexington. There happened to be an open mic at 53rd and 3rd. So I would sneak out. I'd have them, watch the desk for me. And then I'd come back, and then I would sign up early. And then when I came, I was able to get on. That was once I got good, but I was completely unknown then. So I had to wait to go on. I had no idea how it started. All my girlfriends came from work. And they must have waited like four hours for me. And we were having like, sodas and pretzels. And by the time I went on 36 comedians later,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. I said, even Richard Pryor wouldn't get laughs with this audience. I mean, come on. I mean, you've been watching 36 beginner comedians. And I started talking about how I lost all my hair because I put hair straightener on for Black people. And, I used to get big laughs, got nothing. And, but I felt right at home. I just was like, oh my God, this is right where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
If all I've got to do is get funny, I could do it on my own. I don't have to rely on anybody. I just have to rely on my own wits and my own wits. And that kind of was a game changer for me.
Do you remember, was the hair straightener the first joke you told on stage?
Yeah, that was the first joke I told on stage because within 10 minutes, I was almost completely bald.
Really? Wow. How did you, I went through open mic nights. I had an uncle who was a comedian on Miami Beach forever, and I did it as a dare. I got up on open mic night as a dare. I had no aspirations to get into show business, even though my best friend's mother was a casting director in Miami, and Rick and I would get jobs as extras on movies. I'm in the wedding scene of The Godfather. Now, don't ask me to find myself because I couldn't point myself out if my life depended on it, neither can Rick. But we were in there somewhere, and I got to meet a lot of good people. I thought about acting, but I also remember I wanted to be an airline pilot like my dad, which seemed to be a little more secure, at the time. Unfortunately, it didn't work out because of different things. But I remember my first time on stage, and it was like, my legs were shaking and everything. And I had stage fright. And I thought I was the only one in the world with it until I got to meet somebody named Glenn Hirsch who said, make it work for you. And that's what I started to do because I got into it late too. I was like 27, 28 years old. I was already out of the Air Force. I was in college and I just did it because my uncle was doing it. And I thought, well, you know what? I'll give it a try. If I bomb, I bomb. Nobody will remember me tomorrow. Right. How was it for you for the first, say, month or so? Did you have, and then once you got going, this is a two-parter, did you have trouble getting stage time?
Yeah, I was a woman. It was not easy back then. It was very hard. So within 6 months, I ended up producing a show called The Alluring Ladies of Laughter. And they're still 30 years later, they're still doing, comedy, or 29 years later, they're still doing comedy. But it was very hard to work down on. Well, I was temping all over the place. I was working as a word processor. So I was getting like 4 or 5 hours sleep. And then I was sleeping in the bathroom. I would go into like offices that were quiet and get an hour's sleep because I would stay at comedy clubs till like 1, 2 in the morning to just get stage time. And then I'd have to take the train home at like 2 o'clock, 2:30. I couldn't afford like even a cab. And I did that for almost my first year. And I made sure that I did, 6 to 8 spots a week. And I just didn't stop.
Who were some of your
people? It was brutal. It was one of the, I teach comedy now. I said, nothing will ever be as hard as your first year being a comedian. I just had to deal with everything. But now with the Zoom, a lot of comedians think, wow, it's nothing. I'm doing great on these Zoom shows. And I'm trying to say there's a whole nother world of live and what you're dealing with and everything that goes on. So this has been very hard for me with the COVID,
Do you think that, I've always been a proponent of when you see a great actor like Spencer Tracy, or you see Richard Pryor or George Carlin or Bill Maher or some of the other comedians that I admire a great deal, that do it so well. They make it look so easy. And then, and this gets right into the next question. I've done a lot of corporate things. I hate corporate shows because you got to be so squeaky clean. It's like being on a Disney cruise. But I've done corporate shows as a game show host for Game Show America. They don't exist anymore. They went out of business. And I remember that there would always be one PR person in the company. She's going to host. Okay, fine. But one of us would always take a suit because once you get in front of that audience and that light is on you, it's a whole other ball game. Do you find, as you just said with the Zoom thing, are these young comedians going to find out real quick that it's not the same thing?
I think they are. Well, one of the classes I was teaching is hosting, crowd work, and being heckled, and so preparing them for everything that they're going to go through. And I was teaching. I was at one point I was teaching like 4 classes a week. It was exhausting, but a couple of them have experienced bombing when they do live. And I said they one audition for a club, and I'm like, why didn't you tell me you were going to audition for a club? You need 6 months to a year of solid comedy before you could even audition for a club. Now it's going to take you another 6 months or a year before they'll even give you a shot.
Yeah.
And then I told all the comedians, make sure that you don't audition for a year, which is what I waited a year before I auditioned for clubs that I wanted to work, and another one took like 2 years. I mean solid comedy, like 8 to 10 hosting shows, asking professionals to take me on the road with them so I could host, and then working my way up to feature. It was a very thankless job. I mean, you just had to so believe in your comedy, believe in yourself, know that there was a better way. And by the time I got to my second year, I got my first development deal. So for young comedians, young and old, that are just young at comedy, they seem to think that all they have to do is be great on Zoom or do a bunch of open mics. They don't understand the craft, the art, how to read an audience, how to deal with hecklers, what to do when the room is packed, what to do when somebody does half your material or does your set, what to do when a waitress breaks a glass, what to do if you start to get flop sweat because no one's laughing, what to do when you get heckled. There's so much that goes into being a good comedian. And, you're not going to learn everything on Zoom, but you're going to learn at least the art of performing by yourself with an audience and seeing if you can construct good enough jokes. So it's hard. It's very hard.
I as I told you earlier, and by the way, we have Vanessa Hollingshead on with me here. You're watching Mainstreet, Gary Allen with you, as we are every Friday at 4 p.m. My uncle used to pay people too, to come in and heckle me. And Chris DePetta and I were talking about that. I think your egg timer's ready.
No, someone keeps bothering me. I just have to tell them. I just have to say I can't.
Yeah. But Chris DePetta and I talked about this, and Chris said, yeah, and I remember when Tubby would do that to you, but he said you learned how to handle a crowd real quick, real fast. Because I traveled on the road with him, and I got to meet a lot of the old comics. Charlie Callis was a good friend of mine when I lived in Las Vegas. As a matter of fact, when I got to Las Vegas, I started working with Engelbert and Tom Jones there, and then they took me on the road, et cetera, et cetera. But if you learn how to handle a room, big, small, and different, a waitress drops a glass, you make a funny little thing, or you ignore it altogether. Somebody's heckling you, you learn how to deal with it. It depends. Are they heckling you because they think they're funny or because they're drunk? I mean, because in comedy clubs, they serve alcohol. Once you learn how to handle a crowd, and my time at the Groundlings also was a major help to me in dealing improvisation, which I know is one of the things we're going to talk about with you. You love to do. And so do I, because I do impressions. I started out doing those as a kid. How did you go to study improv somewhere in order to get technically at ease being on stage and doing improvisation with the audience? And do you have the house lights turned down so you bring the audience in when you do your sets?
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, sometimes you're doing a corporate and there's like big lights. They have no sound. They have maybe a sound system that's a microphone that's on a podium. So and then bright lights, and that's it. And you have to look at everybody. You have to be clean. When I do corporate stuff, I prepare. I try and find out as much as I can about the company, about a boss. Can I make fun of a boss? Can I make fun of a secretary? Is there something about this company that everybody agrees on? And, so if you get paid, I always feel like if you're going to get paid well at a corporate, make it really do a great job learning all about the company that you're performing for. Don't just think, well, I'm funny, they're lucky to have me, and I want to get paid like that. I just find that kind of arrogant.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
But I did improv. I couldn't stand. I wasn't up there. It was like with the yes and. I just wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't my cup of tea, or it wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah, I at the Groundlings, they don't teach that kind of stuff with the like improv groups will do. the Keep It Going Forward or Second City. They don't really do that. They take what talent you have and they move forward with it. I was very fortunate. Bob Saget was in my class. Kevin Costner was in my class. Nick DiTuro was in my class. Barbie Benton was in my class. So we had a pretty good class. I was doing radio in LA. So I was taking it more to get my improv skills going on the radio. And when I was emceeing for Bud at the Improv from time to time, when I had the opportunities to do so. You have also done a number of Comedy Central shows.
Mm-hmm.
You know in advance, obviously, that it's going to be December, whatever, or January, whatever. When do you start working on new material, as well as some of your integrating some of your older stuff? When do you start? 6 months out, depending upon the time frame you have?
But to do character work?
Well, yeah, no, to do like the Comedy Central specials.
Oh
that
my
you have
God!
done.
I would know. I knew when I got the Comedy Central. When I got the Comedy Central, I found out when I had like a month and a half to get ready, and I was doing 2 and 3 sets a night and just going through what's funny. I was typing them out. I was training I was training like an athlete. I mean, I would just do every bit, do the same material, make sure that everything worked, and I had to have like at least 37 to 40 minutes solid material for them to make a half hour for them to edit it. And keep it reasonably on the clean side on top of that. Mm-hmm. And then they told me that I couldn't do the Beatles rap song because I couldn't say Beatle lyrics. And I found that out. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I changed it to, instead of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, it's Lucy in the Sky, classic, Lulu in the Air with Eyes Bling Bling. And then Picture Yourself Like a Boat on a River. And then it was Colonoscopy Eyes. So it wasn't, it was Colonoscopy Eyes. Oh. So I changed all the lyrics. Nobody knew it. And, that's what I did. And then for Funny Women of a Certain Age, I just again prepared like my life depended on it, because that's your one shot to kind of stand out. Like you get one shot. There's so many women in this business. And then there's an older woman. You got to work twice as hard. To be a woman, you got to work hard. Then an older woman twice as hard. So you just want to make sure that you are in the best shape ever so that you're seen as a comic that just happens to be funny. So
I don't think you're an older woman. I think you're a beautiful woman with your beautiful eyes, your hair, your smile, everything. That's why you're on here, because I like what you do. You were talking about character stuff. How do you, when you're developing a character or a bit on stage where a character is involved, where do you begin? I know where I do with impressions, but where do you begin doing what you do, and how do you pick the character? Is it from somebody you see on the street, somebody you see on TV? Where do you go with that?
Well, one character, I did a whole bit on hot yoga, taking hot yoga, and this really happened, and I thought I was going to lose my mind. An accent that I have a very hard time with is the LA accent. They talk like that. It's like, oh my God. It's like, really, it's really great to be here. I mean, I don't really, New York's cool. It's like, oh, whoa. I mean, everything about that type of personality. So I'm in yoga class, and it really is to calm me down, relax me, get a great workout. And the woman that's the teacher is from LA. So she's going, okay, on the count of 6, inhale for 6 counts, inhale. 4, 5, 6, exhale. I'm like, it's inhale, exhale. I'm getting so angry. Sweat's dripping down. I'm doing the thing, and it's like, please just like, and I had to listen to it like 18 times. Inhale, exhale. I'm like, I was so frustrated. I had to take another yoga class to calm down from that yoga teacher. That's how I get my character stuff is really from real life. And then I was trying to do guided meditation, and the woman was like, breathe and release all of your anxieties. I'm like, anxieties? That's not a word. Anxieties? It's anxiety. Anxiety. Now I'm getting like, didn't they like check her phonetic English? I'm sure she's smart. So I'm not even, and then like, breathe from your head down to your uncles. I'm like, uncles? That's what I think here. What happened with me and my uncle? Like, I don't know. and then, and then release fully through your thighs, your third chakra. Like, is this guided meditation or guided masturbation? When am I going to get laid anyway? So I'm like, I'm completely out of it.
Yeah.
So, well, let me do the British guided meditation. I love the accent. And I really did with the Australian and British, like, you're in a lovely field. You see flowers and trees wherever you are, and a unicorn slowly coming towards you. And the unicorn carries the sacred chant in its mouth. Now, for a small fee, the chant will be yours. Just go to www.britmonk.com. And then from that, I go into the New York guided meditation. It's relatable, and I just go off. So that's how I get to my characters, always from real life.
When I lived in LA, I was out there for 10 years. And I remember.
You know the type I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Well, they were doing Valley Talk, which is even worse than what you were doing, because it was like 30 and 40-year-old women. For sure. Like, wow, gag me. Wow. I turned to Saget one day in class because we were on a break and we went across the street to a sandwich shop. And the girl behind the counter said something to Bob. And Bob is originally from Philadelphia. Now, he's been out in LA forever in the day, and he's somewhat sophisticated. And I say that somewhat as a friend, I can say that about him. And I was listening to this woman, and she's going on and on and on. And I'm going, do you even know what the hell she's talking about? He says, I don't even think she knows what she's talking about. But it was like crazy. But I've always picked up on accents. I got hooked on accents from the Von Meter albums, the Kennedy First Family albums. Mm-hmm. I started doing the Kennedy albums like right away. When I develop a character, I take it from the bottom and I work it up, and I have a history behind that person, and I have everything going for it. And so I can draw from that. Do people they get offended? I mean, if I don't know if you get into politics at all through your characters, but do people, I mean, there used to be an old adage, be careful what you do politically, because right away you're going to offend a certain percentage of the House. Do they still have that adage going on? Is that still happening?
There's certain characters that I stay away from now that I didn't used to ever have a problem with, and certain characterizations like Asian, Japanese, Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
I really can't do them anymore. Black, I still do, but it's always the white women or the white men that get very uptight. The black women are fine with me doing the accent, because when you do an accent really well and you get into the soul of the character, they understand that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and they understand that you're imitating them because it's empowering. Black women do is very empowered. So it's very frustrating. And then if I do anything, say, related to abortion, when I was trying to get pregnant, instead of making a sarcastic remark like, wow, I had such a hard time getting pregnant. If I knew it would be that difficult, I never would have had all those abortions. Like, that doesn't fly. People look at me, and I'm the big sister. I'm the one you look up to. I'm the one that is confidently underconfident. They cannot buy. It doesn't work with me. It can work with a harsher comedian or a comedian that is dark and edgy. I mean, I'm edgy, but I don't have that darkness. So what I do is, like, I'm at this woo man meeting for fertility, and I'm there, having a really hard time getting pregnant. And then this woman sitting next to me, she was like, oh dear. Oh, if I knew it would be this hard to get bloody pregnant, I never would have had all those abortions. Just like, okay. So then it's no longer me, but I get to say something harsh.
I think if people realize that you're not making fun of them so much as you're kind of enjoying who they are, they don't get so upset. The blacks have a great sense of humor. They don't like to be called African Americans anymore, any more Native Americans. They don't like to be called that anymore. Thanks to Mr. Saget, my whole art collection is nothing but Native American stuff, or not Bob, but Mr. Costner. But when I've developed characters that I don't really do anymore, I did a joke on a cruise ship here off the coast of Florida. It was a gambling cruise. And I talked about the fact that my nephew had just been kicked out of school for having relations with the teacher. And I went, of course, he's homeschooled, and at one time that used to get a big laugh. Well, I didn't know that there was a group of teachers there on the ship that night enjoying themselves. And boy, did I hear from them. We don't find that a bit funny. We don't attack our students. And I said, it was a joke. What do you think was going on? I mean, you got to be really, really careful. You entertained in the Middle East USO tours, and I've had friends of mine. Last week, I had a woman on who wrote a book about Bob Hope, along with her co-writer Linda Hope, about Bob's trips doing USO shows. I did one down in Guantanamo Bay, which was a tough deal. Mm-hmm. What was it like? What was it like for you, and your thoughts before and after you did the shows about our service personnel? And when we had Memorial Day last weekend, any thoughts went through your mind about the people that you entertained? Any faces that you remembered?
Well, for Memorial Day last week, it was totally rained out. And a lot of people were supposed to go to parties. I was supposed to go to a party. And I thought in my own way, this is perfect. This is perfect for Memorial Day, because there was soldiers, you know, in Normandy, Vietnam, you know, Korea, World War I, World War II, that were, you know, Afghanistan. And it was well, maybe not in Afghanistan. They were in their trenches, maybe with their, you know, with their troops, and it would be pouring rain, and they still had to fight a war for our freedom, and they'd be cold and hungry and have gangrene on their feet and not eaten in a couple of days and not knowing if they'd come home alive. So when it rained like that, it really didn't bother me. I thought it was a real reminder that it's not about hot dogs and hamburgers and schmoozing and getting drunk off your ass. It's to remember that all these men and women fought for your freedom. So I didn't mind the Memorial Day being rained out, and it was an amazing experience. I think I remember how young the guys were, and thinking, wow, they could be my sons. And they were so happy to be at war. They were so happy to be in the military. They were just so happy and positive, and just these beautiful young men and women. And I just remember thinking, some of them are not going to come back. It was like 120, 130 degrees. So they're going to give you all they've got because they don't know better, and they've been trained for war. And you give them all that you've got, because some of them might not see, you know, another day.
Yeah,
it was profound for me, and I never for 1 second ever regretted performing, and I would do it again.
I have talked to many performers who performed in you know, different USO shows, and I was very good friends, thank God, with Robin Williams, and I know how he felt about it. And I was telling Martha last week that Bob Hope came to where I was in Vietnam, but I never got to see him because I was on R&R in Hong Kong at the time. And then the other time I was a helicopter pilot. We had to fly perimeter to make sure Charlie didn't kill him, because he had a bounty on his head for $1 million. If they wanted him, the Germans had the same thing on him. But all I remember is that's all the guys talked about for weeks after the shows. Oh, we got to see Joey Heatherton, or we got to see this one or that one. And people adored him. And I know that when they see a young, beautiful female such as yourself telling jokes and making them feel entertained, they're happy. For a little while, they can forget about why they're there, what they're doing, and just think about being home for a couple minutes in their life. And I know what that is so gratifying for performers. I know, because performers are very giving and type of people. So I thank you for that. Just as a veteran myself, thank you for doing what you did. I know you also entertained in England. That had to be a trip. I've been to England. Their sense of humor is entirely different than ours. What was it like there for you, telling our type of joke, or did you have to redefine and refine and change your jokes around a little bit for England?
That was not. Some places were very pleasant, but I opened with how bad their teeth were, which I already lost the audience.
Yes.
And I felt like, am I making this up? You know, so already they hated me, and the teeth were bad. And I had bad teeth. My dad had bad teeth. I'm half English. I figured they wouldn't mind, but to them, I was like pure American. And then I did one show at the Comedy Store, which is like one of the most prestigious clubs you could work at. They put me on at close to 1 a.m. There would be a 20-minute, you do it 20 minutes. Then there was a break for everyone to get drinks. People were throwing up in the middle of your set. And I got heckled by some English guy, like, you know, what's your 23rd Amendment, Yank? And I was like, I don't know. I'm American. I guess I'm not. And then I tried to talk about Winston Churchill and switch it around, but they did not make it easy for me. And it was really interesting. If the man laughed, the woman would laugh. And in America, when you tell a joke, if the woman laughs, the man laughs. It was very hard. And every time I perform for English people when they're in New York, they just love it. And I make such fun of the English, but in a very warm way, and how stupid Americans are and how much we like the accent and how they use words. And they love it. But when you're in England on their soil, they put you through your paces. And if you can reach a point where, and they like toilet humor, like I did these jokes on, I did like some toilet humor jokes, and they thought it was hysterical. I tried to do all my brightest, historically well thought out, wordy material, thinking they'd love it. And lo and behold, they like the lowbrow jokes most of all. So
don't you think most people kind of do in a way? Fart jokes are still laughed at today as they were 200-300 years ago.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, when you get down to it, that's pretty much where it is. How did you get picked to do a Comedy Central special? I mean, it's one thing to get ready, as we discussed earlier, for it, but you're obviously a comedian of note. Everybody knows who you are. They know how funny you are. Do they come to you? Does your agent go to them and say, hey, I think she's ready for a Comedy Central special? I mean, do they come to you?
I had no agent at the time. I found out that they were doing specials, and I had to be on that show. I knew how good I was. No one had seen me. I was just like after my deal kind of went south, it had nothing to do with me. They picked it. I was supposed to do that thing Stephen Zahn got that thing you do with Tom Hanks, and he went off to have a nice indie career. I was supposed to do play a cop, the Billy Club, that never got developed. So I went from hot in LA and New York to ice cold. So my only way was to reinvent myself, and that's what I did. I mean, after I was so upset because I turned down the Drew Carey show. I turned it down. and turned down $260,000. I would have had that. I would have been on a hit show within 2 years of being a comedian, but wasn't meant to be. And so I was disillusioned. I was angry. I was scared. And I kept writing and working and writing and working. And I kind of went underground. Nobody knew me in the business, or they were on to the next young one, the next thing, the next new thing, that's how it is, who's the flavor of the month. And I had my shot. And I just knew how funny I was. I knew what I was capable of. So I knew one guy that worked there, and his name was Chris Young. Still remember his name, Chris Young. And I said, listen, I've got a great, 40 minutes. And he's like, Vanessa, you got to have an agent submit you. I can't. I said, I'm begging you, please watch this. It's like, I can't just do that. I mean, no one knows. I mean, I know you. I know how funny you are. And I said, you just have to watch this tape. So now I had a week to get this tape together, a couple of weeks it was like 2 weeks. And it was right during the blackout in New York City. So I still was determined, and I got someone to tape me, and I put the whole tape I put the tape together. I got it to like 36, 40. It was like 40 minutes, sent it to Chris Young, FedEx. And I said, please, Chris, I'm begging you, just look at it. If it's not funny, that's all right. I'm just begging you to look at it. And then I was going to clubs saying, if it would be a weekend, can you just give me 20 minutes? And then I put the 20 minutes together with the same guy, same outfit, same club. And they did that. And I sent it, said a little prayer. I sent it. He got it on, I think, Friday. And then Tuesday, I got my special. So that was, you just believe in you got to believe in yourself.
Do you think that's probably what separates success from people who may have the talent but don't truly believe within themselves? You've got to take the leap of faith with who you are. If you truly believe whatever talent you may have, whether it's show business or something else, the difference between success and sometimes not being successful, and I don't say the word failure, is taking that leap of faith as you did.
You can take a leap of faith when you're kind of young and stupid, or you just know how good you are, and you have this certain fearless courage about you. And then you can kind of get knocked down a little bit, or just kind of get a little bit more wiser, where it's irrelevant. You're just happy in the process. You're happy making a living doing what you do, that you've been disillusioned by. Didn't matter what famous people you work for, what money you made, that life was so much more bigger than that. And that begins to happen the longer you do comedy to some extent. And you just want to keep being a performer. It becomes irrelevant. Making a living as a performer, the joy of doing that, and then writing and doing acting again. I mean, just all kinds of things. But there's a lot of nepotism that goes on. So if I was, if my last name was from someone famous, I would get pushed right through. Would not matter if I had, ambition or zero ambition, ton of ambition or zero ambition. But it's the staying power. And I think when people have had to fight hard for what they wanted, I think they appreciate it. They appreciate what happens when an audience really gets you.
Yeah, I've always been a firm believer. And I learned this from my mother when she started out as an interior decorator. She learned the business from the bottom up. And I think when you have to start from the bottom up and work your way up, baby steps. I mean, I walked away from the radio business for years when I was in LA. And they don't let you back in so easily, as you found out, even as a comic. They don't let you in the front door so easily anymore. You said something that I hope I'm not hitting a bad tone with this. Why did you turn down the Drew Carey show? Or why didn't that work out?
Because I signed with Carsey Warner and they begged me not to leave them. They said, you'd be the third lead. You'd be playing a cop, which I would have been perfect for. And they said, please, please, Vanessa, stay with us. We're going to get this made. We've got Steve Zahn on board. He's going to be your love interest. This is going to be an amazing opportunity. Just give us a little chance. They had Roseanne. They had The Cosby Show. They had all these hit shows. And NBC said, just take a look at the pilot for Drew Carey. And I didn't really know Drew Carey. I was so new in the business. And, I thought the pilot was okay. I thought his crazy sidekick with the hair and the blue eyeliner, I thought she was the best thing about the show. Mm-hmm. And then I also pitched my own show about having hippie parents. And then that year, Dharma and Greg comes out, and I feel like sometimes I don't know. I can't prove it, but I feel like they took my idea and just had a younger person and a straight guy, a straight husband and a younger person. And they had the hippie parents. They just changed it around. Mm-hmm. I can't prove it, but they didn't have that show before I took a meeting in with them, because that was the show I was pitching, to be the straight daughter of two hippie parents and what that was like growing up. And so anyway, they promised the moon and the stars. And then when Steve Zahn left, they tried to develop another show with me in mind, not for me, but like I'd be part of an ensemble cast, and that didn't work out. Then they did Third Rock from the Sun. And then this is when I realized what a crazy, awful, crappy business is. I was with William Morris at the time. I was auditioning for everybody. I asked them to be released from my contract. They even gave them, I made I got $100,000 and I gave them I think 40 back. I said, just release me so I can audition for stuff. And I was up for 3 shows, auditioned for 18. I was taken completely off the market. And I was so disillusioned. I remember my agent just knew how sad I was. And I said, I got to get out. I got to get out of this town. This town is killing me. I can't take it. I got to be home. I got to be in New York. And she drove me to the airport. And then about, maybe it was 9 months later, they decide to revive the Billy Club and they want me to audition. And they've got Randy Quaid now is going to play the main guy. Mm-hmm. And so they make me audition for the part that was written for me. This was for Vanessa Hollingshead. I have to audition to play me, and I still get rejected. And that was when I was like, this is beyond my comprehension. You do this to somebody. And that's what happened.
The business I learned living in LA will eat you alive. Mm-hmm. Make no apologies about it. I know actors that sat and waited. Oh yeah, I'm under contract and they're developing this, developing that, and nothing ever came of it. I mean, the only actors that I know in Hollywood, and I don't know that many anymore, that work on a regular basis are the people that I know that do soap operas. They're the only ones that work on a regular basis. And even then they come and go pretty quick. I mean, I have a couple of friends on The Young and the Restless. Will Schreiner's brother, Ken, is a good friend of mine who he played Scotty Baldwin on General Hospital. And he says, it'll grind you in the ground. I mean, the pay is great, but the work will grind you in the ground. And I did Hill Street Blues and St. Elsewhere. I did some extra work because Stephen Boschko was one of my professors at Carnegie Mellon. So I got some work there, but I knew my life wasn't as an actor. I just knew that. As Jay Leno got more popular, even though you can't tell it with my hair, they weren't going to hire me. And I knew that, but it's a tough town. I know people that are superbly talented, even better talent that is on TV. You worked with a guy, Garrett, Brad Garrett. You know who his great-grandfather was, or his grandfather was, right?
No. Oh, Billy. No. No, I don't know.
Milton Berle.
I didn't even know that. When I worked with him, he left that out.
Yeah, and I mean, I was good friends when I lived in Vegas with Lucy's son, Desi, and he said to me, he said, Gary, being Desi Arnaz got me through a few doors. I got a few parts here or there. He said, but once you get on the other side of that door, it ain't happening. It isn't, and you're out the other side of the door. So it doesn't matter if you're blonde hair, blue eyed, and a great looking woman or a good looking guy. If you don't have the talent, they don't want it. But then again, it depends, as you said, on who if they're going to push you enough, because there's enough lousy TV on now as it is. I just watch the documentaries and I watch all that other crazy stuff. You have worked with some heavy hitters in the comedy world. Excuse me. Talk about that. And by the way, when you worked at the MGM, was that the MGM Grand in Las Vegas? Yeah,
with Brad Garrett. And Brad Garrett told me once, he used to open for Ray Romano when they were doing the Ray Romano show. Then they did a tour and they were at the, I think it was either the Bellagio. It was like even more upscale than the MGM Grand. Yeah. And Brad Garrett was making fun of everybody. He was on first. He was joking about this person and that person, and made fun of an Asian guy that wasn't laughing, and kept making fun of the Asian guy. And the Asian guy left the hotel, and Brad got fired on the spot because it cost the hotel owner about $1 million. He's no longer going to gamble there because of one joke that insulted him.
Yeah, the heavy hitters out there that go to the whales room for gambling, they're mostly Asians, and they're all over the place. I could tell you a quick story. The opening on Las Vegas Boulevard, and I believe there's the Lion that's on the corner. That used to be the main entrance. With the lion's mouth used to be wide open. There was a different entrance. Wow. But Asians will not walk through an animal's mouth.
Oh, okay.
And that's why they moved it into the back of the hotel. They will not walk through an animal's mouth, particularly a lion or anything else. Talk about some of the heavy hitters you worked with. Carlin, and you worked with Richard Pryor. I know Richard's daughter pretty well. I know his son pretty well. What was it like working with them? And can you give us a little insight as to what you picked up from each one of them that has helped you with your stagecraft as you've moved along with your career?
Well, when I worked, when I opened, I was hosting, and George Carlin was at the Improv. And I was just starting out, and this was the Improv in New York City that Silver Friedman owned. Silver and Bud had a tumultuous marriage, and Bud got did very successful with his improvs, and Silver eventually had to close down. So anyway, it was Dom Irera, me, and then George Carlin. And this was like seeing, I was in love, he could do no wrong. I had watched and studied. Even when I was doing comedy all the time at night, I'd listen to Carlin, re-listen to Carlin, break down his jokes. And I apologized. The place wasn't full yet. And I said, I'm so sorry, Mr. Carlin, that there's so few people here. And I remember he said, oh, I don't worry about that. I just want to hear that the words sound right. The words sound good. I know that's a good joke. And I thought, wow, when will be the day I could just, joke's going to work. That's pretty. And then, so George did a lot of time. Did about 30 minutes. And then Dom follows him. And Dom says, you know what? I'm so tired of this guy stealing my act. I'm just so tired of it. It was just so funny and affectionate. And then for Richard Pryor, no one wanted to open with him. He had MS, and I was trying to get stage time at the Comedy Store, and I was just I was the comedian from New York City, and I would always wait there all night. They'd say, "No, I'm sorry, we got everybody," or "Sorry, it's not going to happen." And I kept saying, I'm really funny, and they're like, "Yeah, well, okay." Then the light would go on, and maybe I did 1 or 2 spots, and I'm like, I headline everywhere in New York City. This is bullshit. Mm-hmm. And then Richard Pryor walks in one day, right? And he's in a wheelchair. He's got his bodyguards, and everyone parts the seas for him, and everyone is afraid to open for him because it's Richard Pryor. They're going to be eaten alive by the audience. Now, I lived in an all-black neighborhood, so I knew, like, my black material. And so they said, "You know what, Vanessa, how about you open for Richard Pryor?" And I said, sure. And I killed. And then Richard Pryor had me come back and talk to him. And he said, "You've got what it takes." And I was crying. And I said, "Thank you. You were my inspiration," And I just sat by his side in the wheelchair. And then I got to open for him again. And this was before cell phones. And I remember seeing, like, up on the Comedy Store, marquee, Vanessa Hollingshead and Richard Pryor. And I wish I would have had a phone because I would have been able to take a picture of that. But I was able to write my name at the Comedy Store. But that was my wonderful moment. And Bill Maher, I was so thrilled to meet Bill Maher. And he said, and I said, I warmed him up for you because it was a town hall. It was like city town center. And it was like 1,800 people. It was the most I'd ever performed, for 1,800, 2,000. And I said, "Well, they're all warmed up." And he said, "I didn't listen to a damn thing you said." And I was like, wow, okay. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, very talented, not the friendliest.
No, I met him once at the Catch a Rising Star in New York on St. Patrick's Day, and he knew who my uncle was, but he really wasn't overly friendly. But yeah, some people are like that, some people aren't. You're going to be performing, let's remind everybody, on June 24th at the 76 House, which is located where, Vanessa?
That's I think it's in Westchester. I'm not sure. It's right near Westchester. It's very hard by train to get there.
Anyway,
it's not easy by train to get there.
Mm-hmm. Brown paper.
Yeah, brown paper bag. If you have a car, you can go.
Yeah, brownpapertickets.com. Go and see Vanessa, please. Vanessa's got a little bit. She's got to get out of here a little bit early, but Vanessa, you have a project going with your partner in crime. Talk about that. It's a special.
On Facebook, you could always see what I'm doing on Facebook. You could always see what I'm doing on Facebook. I'm really bad updating stuff, so I keep all my flyers up. So shows I'm doing in New York, I'm doing a show in Staten Island, I'm doing a show in Connecticut. Like, I got a whole bunch of shows up there.
Oh, okay. But I mean, you just got through, I believe it's a special about a member of your family that you're going to come back on the show and talk about with the co-producer of the project. Talk about that real briefly.
We're both writing partners. We've been working on it this part we've actually been working on for the last 2 years, but it's about my dad, who brought LSD into the country and gave it to Timothy Leary, and Timothy Leary got all the credit, and my dad was basically forgotten about. And so we're reviving all of that, and I helped a writer, Andy Roberts, write the Divine Rascal, and it's getting some very good people are loving the book. And he was just a guy from the North, with a chip on his shoulder that comes to America, gets the LSD from supposedly Huxley's, writes a fake prescription, and, Albert Hoffman sends him the LSD. It was legal back then. So it's about him and all the guys, from Leary to Ron, Fred Barron, for that period. And it also mirrors, and now LSD and MDMA are coming back into fashion because people are doing it with therapy. And if they've had trauma, especially troops, performing, coming back from war, men or women that have been, had horrific childhoods and are traumatized and can't function. They're finding that with this kind of therapy, which is what they believe, my dad and Tim and, so many others, John Beresford, they all believed that this would help. the time is right now. I always say, they had the right drug at the wrong decade, and we have the right decade. So that's what we're working on.
Tappan, New York is where the 76 house is, according to some of our viewers. The Tappan, New York. I don't know exactly where that is, but because I'm not that familiar with New York itself. But how do you think things are going to be now that COVID, we're starting to get a handle on it, places are starting to open up? Are we going to go back to the days before COVID with comedy clubs and performing and opening up? Because I know Mark Riccondonna is booking left and right. But do you think we're ever going to get back to that? Or do you think people are going to be a little more cautious? And like we talked at the beginning of the show, people are not necessarily going to go back to work right away, or they're thinking about changing professions. Do you think show business is going to take a softer opening again this time? Or do you think it's just going to be, wow, doors are open and everybody's at it again?
I have no idea. It really concerns me. I get very frightened that because all these buildings in New York are closing, and they're figuring out that people can work at home, and people end up working even harder with having to go on Zoom and navigate, and the personalities aren't set up to just like stare at yourself and stare at a little square. It's just, I don't know. It seems very like a dystopian society is in the making, and it really scares me. I don't know what's going to happen with comedy. I know that prices for sets in LA have gotten they've skyrocketed.
Yes.
They'd like smaller sets or to reuse the same sets. Or now if a show would take like a week to shoot, now it takes 14 days to shoot because they use half as many on the crew. And I don't know if comedy will come back the way it has. I'm praying to God it does, because, when I did a full show at New York Comedy Club, and there was maybe 30 people, and that was a full show to capacity. So I have no answers about that. I can only pray that everything comes back like gangbusters and everything goes into its opposite. That's all I could say.
We've been talking to Vanessa Hollingshead. She's going to be coming back with me either on this show to talk about her project about her dad, or when I move down to Miami. Before you go.
Well, how come you're living in here and not Miami? I never quite understood that.
I moved from Las Vegas to here to go to work for a buddy's radio station. The station folded because of the hurricanes going through. We didn't have enough insurance, and I got stuck here for a while. I was supposed to be by this time last year down in Miami doing radio and stuff, but finances and everything else kind of got, with COVID, got things. But now everything is moving along. I'm going to probably have a daily show down there plus this show on Fridays. So I'm looking forward to going home. As I say, It's been 20 plus years since I was home. I grew up down there. My dad was based there with the airlines. My mom, I went to the University of Miami down there. I mean, everything. Before we say goodbye, and we only got a couple of minutes because Vanessa has to get out of here to go and do another a Zoom show. Who is Vanessa? I mean, if you had to look at yourself in the mirror and describe yourself to somebody, who are you?
I can't. We got I can't. It's going in and out.
You're kind of breaking up. Yeah, you're
Hello?
there.
I can't hear. Yeah, you keep breaking up.
Who is Vanessa?
What are you going to say? No, I didn't even hear the question. You were breaking up.
If I had to describe you, or somebody asked you who you are, who is Vanessa down deep inside? Who is she from the little girl that wanted to be on television that bumped into the TV, and who is she now?
I can't hear. It's like I can't, you're gonna have to type the question. I can't see it. I can't even hear it. It keeps going.
It's on your side, but okay. You've got to get out of here. But can you, if you had to describe that little girl that bumped into the TV to the woman that you are now, who is Vanessa?
Vanessa is somebody that never heard the word no and never stopped believing in herself. She had moments where times were dark and she did stop believing in herself, but she was surrounded by so much love and kindness and people that always picked her up when she had reached some of the lowest points in her life. And you just roll with the punches. It's not the hand you dealt. It's the hand it's how you play your cards, And I'm just, there's no rhyme or reason, but if I saw that little girl again, I would just say, I wish I could have been a little kinder to you and loved you a little bit more and not found so much fault with you and just held you, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, you got to get your butt out of here because you got another project you got to take care of. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the show. And let's talk over the weekend or the beginning of next week and figure out when we'll have you back on.
I can't even promise until September with my writing partner. So
okay. Yeah, I'll be down in Miami. I'll be home by then. By then. But I hope you enjoyed the show. It's fantastic. Thank you. Break a leg over at the 76 House. And God bless you,
it's a comedy. It's a thank you. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Take care. All right. Well, hey, I think we had a great time with Vanessa, and we've got a few more minutes to kill. Tom, are you there? Because I'd like to talk about some of the other shows that we have on the network.
Sure, buddy. How are you, sir?
I can't complain except for the dental thing. I keep hiding myself because I don't want people to see that. By the way, as I explained, next week, Jeffrey Mark will be filling in for me. He's also going to fill in for me on the 25th. He's got a couple of great guests coming up. I've got a couple of things cooking too to have some guests coming on as we move forward. But folks, I'm getting surgeries done and they're backing up on me. I was supposed to have more done this week. I go into the dentist's office. Somebody's in there with an emergency. They can't get to me, so it's put off until next week. I can't win to lose with doctors. You know, I'm even Jewish and I can't win with doctors. Are you kidding me? So what's coming up on the network?
Nothing but good things, man. We have some incredible guests coming up over the next couple weeks. Let me see who is on. I know Bob DeBono returns on Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling. Mm-hmm. I know, and there's so many other guests. I don't want to skip over anybody, but I know a big one that's coming up. I'm looking forward to with John Poveromo. We have Ed Asner coming on this Thursday.
Ed Asner.
Yeah, that should be
Mary,
a fun one.
I like Spunky. I can't stand Spunky Mary. Yeah. Well, you know, one of those cast members just recently passed away.
I know. He put out this very poignant tweet. He was like, it's just me and you left, Betty.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, and Betty's 99 years old.
Yeah.
You know, she's never going to die.
I hope not. I know.
You know, I mean, she you know that she and on the Golden Girls, B. Arthur, they didn't like each other at all.
I did not know that.
Apparently, B was came up the hard way. Betty had a little bit easier, and Betty was extremely talented. But apparently, something happened on the set the first year, and B wasn't rude or obnoxious or anything. They didn't fight and yell and scream, but there just wasn't any love lost between them, and that was revealed by Betty herself. She said, "Yeah," she said it did happen. Talk about some of the other shows.
I did not know it. Sorry, I'm all over the place in my head right now because I have so many other things running around me.
I'd love to know if people enjoyed the interview with Vanessa.
Yeah, I would love to hear the feedback. Hopefully people chime in and let us know what's going on. We're on all three right now, Twitch, YouTube, and on the Facebook side.
Yeah. I mean, you know, she's very good and I enjoyed it. I was hoping Mark would be able to join us, but I guess he couldn't get out of his meeting.
No, I know, because I heard it's storming down by him, so he was running because he has a live gig tonight, another live.
Oh yeah, and I'm so happy he's working. I'm hoping all the comedians are going to get work, and it's too bad that Vanessa was like, hey, I'm not sure how this thing is going to unfold, and even though we're opening up again as a country, there is always the possibility, there's always that possibility that it could come back and haunt you. I mean,
well, let's hope not. Let's hope we have a safe and easy return more than anything.
Oh, absolutely. Right? Absolutely. But, and by the way, folks, I don't think you realize this, but Tom is the brains behind this whole thing here with Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling.
Just
and all the hosts.
Part of the team.
Yeah, but, if it wasn't for Tom, a lot of us wouldn't be able to get on the air. And when I move to Miami, this show is going to continue. We're also going to continue on Twitch with Mainstreet. When I do my weekday show down there, that'll be more Miami oriented, but we'll also have some very interesting guests on from time to time. So this is not going to, just because I'm moving doesn't mean anything. It just means I'm moving 200 miles south of here. Yeah. And slowly learning all the years I lived down there, the only Spanish I speak is the stuff you can't say in polite company. It's like the only Greek I know is stuff you can't say in polite company, So maybe there's something to this that promised Hank Azaria I wouldn't do that voice anymore, but I like to do Apu. It is a beautiful thing. But anyway, but no, I want to thank everybody. Tom, thank you for the bottom of my heart for always being there for me on Fridays. And thank Mark Riccondano, Richie Burns, and the entire rest of all the hosts that we have. I enjoyed being on the show yesterday with Frank. That was a whole lot of fun. But I'm going to be off next week. I'm going to be off on the 25th. I'll be back in between unless something happens that I have to take another week off. But I should be back. And please bear with me. It's just medical stuff that has to be done. And I don't want to bore you with this. That's why I keep putting the mask up there, because it ain't a pretty sight. But I thank you all very much for taking the time. Tom, I love you with all my heart. Give your wife my very, very best. Father's Day is coming up. Don't forget, send Tom Father's Day cards. You know, he got a bunch of them on Mother's Day, although those were pretty kind of shaky at the best. But I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us. Join Jeffrey next week at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific, if you're out that way for Main Street. I don't remember who he said he has on for that show. I do know who he has on for the 25th, which I'll talk about a little bit later on, the in-between show. But thank you all very much so much. Tom, thank you so much. We're going to talk as we go off the air. But thank you all very much. And remember, would you do yourselves a favor? Get your shots, and please take care of yourselves and each other.
Night.